And hello, movie lovers, and welcome to the show. With me, I have Beth again from Made for TV podcast. Hello there, everybody.
Hi, everybody. Hi, John. Thanks for having me back.
You're welcome. It's good to have you back again. This is going to be part of our Christmas. This is actually our Christmas episode that we're doing. So I'm excited to be able to do this with you. It's
Yeah.
always a pleasure to have you back on the show. I do
Thank you.
appreciate that.
Thank you.
Um, you're very welcome. I always enjoy having you with us.
You know how
So
much I love to be here, so I'm always happy to be here.
it's always a pleasure, and you're always welcome here as well.
Thanks.
Like we were saying, this is actually going to be our Christmas review for Scrooge. This movie came out in 1988. It was actually
Mhm.
directed by Richard Donner. And matter of fact, Bill Murray and Richard Donner didn't even get along on the set at all. There was like a lot of drama between the two of them.
Really?
Yeah, basically, uh, this is what happened. There was like a lot of tension on the set when asked about by a film critic, which is Robert Ebert,
Oh,
if he
yeah.
had any disagreements with Donner. Murray replied, "Only a few. Every single minute of the day, that could have been really great movie. The script was good. There's maybe one take in the final cut. Movie that is mine. We made it so fast. It was like doing a movie live. He kept telling me to do things louder. I think he was deaf.
Huh.
So
That's
yeah,
very interesting because I would think that if anybody would describe Bill Murray, not being loud enough is absolutely not a word, not a way I would think to describe him. Do you know what I
definitely not.
mean? And even
Right.
when he's like trying to be sort of quiet, and like I was telling you before we went live that I watched part of Caddyshack last night, and even when he's kind of doing the scenes where he's sort of mumbling to himself, you can still totally understand and hear what he's saying. I mean, some of it's nonsense, but it you can totally hear him. So that's interesting.
Yeah, most definitely. Because here's the thing: we already know him from Ghostbusters and things like that.
Hmm.
We already know that he has a presence. A matter of fact, when we made this movie and everything, he wanted to take a break from acting. So
Really,
what? Yeah. So basically, he was in Paris, and he got approached with the script, and he said
really.
yes. Yeah.
That's really interesting. I didn't know that. But it would make sense because he was doing a lot of I mean, the 80s were like a time for him. We had, like you said, Ghostbusters and Hi Brandy. Um, let's see, there was Stripes. Was that 80s or late 70s? It was right around 80s.
That's around the '80s.
Ghostbusters, yeah, and I think they made at least two of the Ghostbusters were made during the 80s. I think the first one was low, right? Second one was maybe 89 or 90.
90
Okay.
was
So they probably would have
Ghostbusters.
filmed it in '89. I'm trying to think of what else that came out. The one with Annie McDowell that I Groundhog Day.
Yeah, that was in
Uh,
'93,
oh gosh.
I believe, or something around that area. Not
So he
'93,
was
maybe
making a
'92.
lot of movies in a short period of time. He also did that other dramatic one, and I can't think of it, where he played a hiker, and it bombed. It didn't do well, and I wonder if that maybe made him decide to take a break too. I can't remember the name of that one. Darn, can't remember.
It's all right. But anyways, the opening of this movie though too reminds me of like an SNL kind of skit
Hmm.
because of the fact he works with his a broadcast company. The broadcast company name is IBC, and they're basically trying to come up with some ideas for Christmas. And so it starts off with this commercial for Santa Claus and things like that for Christmas time. And so it happens to be, and all of a sudden you see the elves working, you see Santa working, and then you see the snowmobile pull up. And next thing you know, it's Santa and the elves are getting out M16 machine guns. Turns into like a complete action movie, but it's
Yeah.
completely different than your average Christmas movie. And then the little mini machine gun was actually used in the movie Predator
Oh,
as
really?
well.
Cool. That's
Yeah,
very cool.
so you have this little small machine gun, and of course they were gonna go on and shoot up Santa Claus and everything. Then it goes into the whole entire meeting with Scrooge with Bill Murray's character Frank, and basically Frank, they don't really care for Frank's ideas, but
Mm-mm.
yet they're afraid of Frank because of the fact that he holds the upper hand in this business because he says what goes and what doesn't.
Yeah. He's the big boss. The other thing I did want to say was that I like that sort of opening thing where they had like Lee Majors and Robert Goulet. I like that because it was a real sort of sense of nostalgia because they were big stars in the 70s. So by the time they made this movie, but then watching it now, it's almost like nostalgia within nostalgia because just watching this movie with Bill Murray obviously is nostalgia. I mean, there's a lot of guest stars throughout, but I just thought, oh, Lee Majors, who is he played the Bionic Man, and I grew up watching that show as well, and I love that. I thought that was really clever. It was fun.
It was definitely fun. And Brandy has a question. Who is your favorite ghost?
Oh, without a doubt, Carol Kane. She's one of my favorite actresses anyway. So I just love. I mean, she just does some of her best work. I think in this movie, she obviously got. I think she got her big break on Taxi. I think that's how probably I know who she was. But she's just so awesome and fun and full of life, and I liked her the most of all of them.
To be honest with you, I like her as well. It's just that the other ghost with the taxi cab of Ghost of Christmas Past was one of my other favorite ones.
David Johansen, yeah, he
Yeah.
was the lead singer for the New York Dolls.
Yep.
So in the 80s, there was a big wave of sort of musicians who become actors. And I think sort of David Bowie led the way in that sense. But yeah, he did a great job too. He did.
Yep. Then here's another thing that is going on within this broadcast company. Frank is wanting to conduct a live Christmas carol on Christmas Eve, making the staff work throughout the holiday. Frank fires executive Elliot Larian for disagreeing with him. Out of all the people to stand up for him, it's this little guy named Elliot. And he nobody liked the other advertisement pitch that he had, which was like acid rain. Then you have a couple of other little action sequences with terrorists blowing up an airplane and things like that. And then Elliot's like, I don't think this is a good idea, Frank. I think that we shouldn't do this. He goes, you know what, Elliot? I think you're right. I don't think we should do this. He goes, I'm glad that we talked. He goes, I know, I'm glad too, Frank. I'm glad. And then he goes, after he leaves, you need to fire him.
Wait 5 minutes.
It's
Because he said he was going to get back to him in 5 minutes.
right. And then next thing you know, you see Frank over there timing the security of how long it's going to take them to pack up his stuff and throw him out of the building. Of course,
Yep.
Elliot is just sitting on the steps, and of course, Frank also told them to change the locks because that's what you're supposed to do when you let someone go. And so Elliot's just sitting on the steps. He's crying. He doesn't know how to break the news to his wife, and he's over there going through all the
He's
scenarios
like
of how
out
to
loud trying to say it, like practicing what he's going to say to her.
right? He goes, well, how do you feel about living in a studio apartment now since now I lost my job? He's just going through all the semantics of it. And then all of a sudden the cops come out there, they bring him his stuff from his office. And then Frank's over there, 4 minutes, not bad. Good timing.
That was funny, Bobcat Goldthwait. He's so funny. He was so funny.
He
Uh,
was. But he was actually one of my favorite characters, though. Elliot was
yeah.
one of my favorites.
I,
And
I
then,
like that they had sort of him as like the running gag throughout, but he's just genuinely funny and his comedic timing is good. He's very good at like giving his lines.
most definitely, I always felt like he was really underrated as a
Very.
comedian and as an actor.
I agree
To,
because you didn't see a lot of him outside of the 80s either.
No, he played. I think he. I would want to say he played in a police academy, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think so.
But other than that, though, you don't really see much of him or anything
Mm-mm.
like that.
Mm-mm.
Because you would think after playing in a movie directed by Richard Donner, and then also too playing side with Bill Murray, maybe Bill Murray would approach him. Maybe somebody would approach him to do more movies. But
Yeah.
he just doesn't have a lot going on unless I'm missing out
Mm-mm.
on his filmographies.
No, I
But
don't think so.
then after that, Carol is like, "Why are you doing that to him on Christmas?" And she's like, "Well," he's like, "Well, he overruled me on what I wanted to do." So she just kind of rolled her eyes at him, and then she winds up saying, "Well, what about the bonus? Oh yeah, that reminds me. I need to go in here and take away his bonus too." So not only is he getting fired now, he's also getting his bonus taken away from him as well. So you have two things going on over here, and also too, I want to say, yeah, they kind of play around with it with that character throughout the movie, but also too, it's kind of like a story arc of Elliot
Mhm.
in a sense where he comes to grips with the fact that he got fired, but then he's like, you know what, I'm gonna take charge. I'm gonna go after Frank and kill him.
It's so
So
funny.
the poor guy, everything happens in the events of one day of
Right?
everything happening to him.
And it's
Um,
and it is like it is that is true 80s, like that's true 80s comedy to have like him get madder, get drunker, and then he comes back with the guns. It just is so it's so classic.
it definitely is. It's one of my favorite '80s films, though, too.
Yeah.
Um, of course, Grace is also asking about other people that he wants to get Christmas gifts for. He goes, well, what about you? Towel. What
Towel.
about your brother? Towel. What about this guy? VCR. Towel. VCR. And she goes, what about me? What about my bonus? Because remember, he goes, okay, towel for you. Well, what about my bonus? Then after that, she face cloth and a towel.
Yeah. Add yourself a nice face cloth with that towel.
Right.
I don't know how she stood to work for him, but she did. And she must have been working for him for a long time because when she found out, because he said, I didn't know her husband had died. I thought he took off time for whatever. And that was what, 5 years prior?
Right.
What a,
We'll get to that in a minute
yeah,
though too.
yeah.
But yeah, it just goes to show you how much he never really focused on Carol or anything around him. All he cared
Yeah.
about was self rather than
Hmm.
everybody else that worked for him
Yep.
and everything too. But to me, I believe that Grace is this full of life character who's a secretary who sees the good in everybody, who wants the attention, who wants to help Frank
Yeah.
to be a better person, but Frank doesn't want to be a better person. He just wants
No.
to do what Frank wants to do.
Yeah. He's a selfish a hole
Yes.
in the beginning.
In the beginning, he is. um, then, of course, he winds up winning this one award that he gets. And matter of fact, this is how much he doesn't care. He knows he was going to win the award anyways. So
Yep.
he just goes on ahead, leaves it in the taxi, and that's it.
Yep.
And if you look in the background of his office, you see a bunch of awards and stuff like that. So it's like, okay, so he doesn't bring home that trophy. He has other trophies too. So therefore,
Hmm.
he's not going to miss that trophy. And also, too, his security officers downstairs are also scared of Frank.
Yeah.
So and then he goes up the stairs, and then that's whenever basically someone's banging on the doors, and then Frank is not answering the doors or anything. Next thing you know, the doors blow open, and it's his ex boss.
Hmm.
That still has like an oxygen tank next to it.
Yeah, and I think I'm trying to the one thing I have to say about that is I thought that was funny and I liked it, but when they kind of went closer on him and he was had all the makeup and the special effects, I didn't think they were great for him.
When I was
He
a
looked
kid, I thought they were, but
yeah, I
seeing
mean,
them
and
now,
and I was thinking, by even by 80 standards, and it wasn't that the whole thing was bad. It was like in particular when he kind of was like pulling on his arm and it kind of I don't know. I thought it would like maybe be dustier, like a dustier blow up or something, and it wasn't. It just kind of was gray, and just that was the only thing about that with all the special effects in that movie. I just didn't think that one was great, and I don't know why. Because it wasn't terrible. I just don't think it was as good as it could have been.
I think they could have done it a little bit more dustier with him with his makeup
Yeah.
falling off,
Yeah, because he was a
deterioration of the
corpse, so you
skin.
would think that it would be like, just like things would fall off and dust would fly because he was kind of a mummified corpse, I
Right, and
guess,
that
you
would make it
know?
a lot funnier to me, to be
I
honest with you.
Yeah, I agree. I kept expecting that. I don't know why. Like the whole time he was on screen, and then when his arm it was his like, arm or wrist or whatever got pulled off, I was like totally expecting like oh, poof, and then there wasn't one. I was like, oh, okay, oh well.
Right, because I was actually expecting maybe his arm falls off, maybe some type of maybe his skin falls off even more, but
Yeah,
no, there's no deterioration with him, and then seeing it in a high definition TV now, you're like,
yeah.
yeah, there's something off with it, with the makeup and the
And I
face.
wonder if that's why. Maybe it's because of that the HD TV, we're seeing it in a different way than we saw it in the theater, or I don't know. I don't know why, but that was like the only special effect I didn't love in the entire movie.
All right. Um, but another thing that winds up happening, his boss winds up, like I said, his boss winds up breaking in there, and he winds up telling him, "Hey, look, there's going to be three ghosts of Christmas. There's going to be three ghosts that's going to be visiting you." And Frank is all of a sudden just being freaked out in a sense because, you know, he's like next thing you know, what he wants his old boss pushes him out the window
Yeah.
and hangs him down. As a matter of fact, his hand turns into this big, huge, humongous finger and just pushes him out of the window. And he's like, "Okay, put me back, put me back, put me back." but but yeah, I just thought that scene was actually played out pretty well, where
It
Frank
was
is
funny.
now, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, too, there's also another thing I want to mention is too. Bryce Cummings is also in there to provide assistance. This is also before this other thing that winds up happening before his old Frank's old boss comes. Remember, he comes out of the out of the elevator,
Why can't
and
I? What am I thinking about?
Bryce is actually the this happy-go-lucky kind of guy, and then looks over to the secretary. Goes, "Find out everything you need to know about Bryce. I don't trust
Oh
him."
yeah, 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 yeah. I don't. Yeah, I thought that was good. I mean, that was interesting. I don't know. It was a little bit slower than the other rest of it, but I don't know. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, then of course his mentor Lou Hayward is also who died of a heart attack. Lou
Mhm.
warns him of the three ghosts, like I mentioned, will
Yeah.
appear the next day. I'm looking through my notes. Frank avoids the same fate before it vanishes. The ghost dials up Clary Phillips, Frank's lost love from years ago. Clary comes
Oh yeah.
to the network to talk to Frank, but Frank does not make time for her, and she returns to the homeless shelter where she.
Yeah, what was that scene? What was with that scene? Because he like calls her up and then she makes the time to go over to see him and then he's kind of an asshole to her and it's like, "Well, you're the one that contacted her. She wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you." But I do love Karen Allen, so I was kind of glad that she was in this movie. I think I like her. She didn't do a lot after that either, I don't think, but she was so good in that movie. Of course, if you if you love the Raiders of the Lost Ark, you have to love her.
Exactly. I thought that she was the light and soul to Bill Murray's character. To be honest with you, I
Yeah.
thought the chemistry was really good between them two.
Yeah, I bet they were like friends, I would say, because you're right. They did have a lot of chemistry and especially I don't want to jump ahead too much, but that scene where they show them having their first Christmas together and she gives him the Kama Sutra book and it's just a lovely little scene and it's cute and they just you can tell that they're in love and kind of that new love thing and he's a different person. You can clearly see who he what he used to be like before he became the person that we meet at the beginning of the movie. But yeah, and I just was a little disheartened by that because I was like, no, but obviously that changes over the course of the movie, so it is intentional that scene. So, but I liked her, so I was glad. And then we learned, like you were saying, that she works at the homeless shelter. So we do learn that in that scene.
Right, and then there was somebody before his heart got cold. To be
Yeah,
honest with you, and then there was someone
yeah,
in his life that he loved and cared about. But then the
hmm
events that happened in his past is a reflection of where he's at now, and
yeah.
he doesn't like what he sees now, even
No.
though he's getting to boss everybody around. He still doesn't like seeing who he sees. Matter of fact, we see an image in the mirror where he's like kind of smiling at himself because of the fact he thinks he's the hot shit whenever he's
Yep.
not.
hmm
But on the outside and everything, he has a hard shell to where he
hmm
feels like he has to put on this game face to show everybody of the fact that he's showing masculinity
Yeah.
and everything, and that he can take charge when he needs to take charge.
Yeah, and I think he's a little more aware of the fact that he's doesn't care, or I don't know if that's the right way of saying it, than even Ebenezer Scrooge was early on in the play or in the story in Dickens' story. So That's kind of interesting, but I mean, obviously, in Ebenezer Scrooge had his girl, like his girl who he loved, and then he turned the gold. So I like that play on that too. I thought that was a good play on the original story of Dickens. So the Christmas Carol, I like that. I thought it was effective. That was good.
I do too. I liked how also too how the play also connects in with Bill Murray's character
Yeah.
as well. And I thought that
Hmm.
was really neat how they played in the transformation of Scrooge the play and playing in the transformation of Frank at the same time. So I
Yeah,
thought
it's
that was
almost
great.
kind of like a play within a play, or a play about a play that's about the play. Is
Right.
that right? Is that how that works? I mean, it's clever. It's very clever.
Definitely clever. I like the writing. The writing is definitely really good in it.
Yeah.
Um then of course, by the way, the ghost is the one who winds up dialing Clary's number. So it's
Okay.
kind of like foreshadowing and trying to force the relationship to where Frank might actually do something rather than not do anything at all
Yes.
or anything like that. So I'm thinking that he was trying to help Frank out by changing his ways by making her go over to that studio, but then he gives her the cold shoulder. Then of course we wind up running into the ghost of Christmas past
Yeah.
in the taxi cab.
Yeah. I
And
think
yeah,
that. Yeah, I agree with you. That's right. I agree.
because I think he was trying to give Frank another chance. Like, okay, we won't do the ghost thing unless you can change your ways. So let me go on ahead and put her in there. Also, there's a little bit of a foreshadowing into his past that we're going to wind up seeing about how is this connected with this woman? What's the connection with her?
Yeah.
And so what winds up happening is the ghost winds up calling her. She comes over to the studio. Frank winds up chewing her out, giving her the cold shoulder. He goes into the cab, and then we wind up seeing into his past when he's a kid. He's sitting in front of the television. He's
Ugh.
watching different TV shows. The TV's practically raising him, and there's no. And then of course, we wind up. And of course, this is stuff that probably Frank blocked out of his mind.
Yeah.
Because remember, he goes over. Oh, my dad must not have decorated that house yet. And the cab driver's just looking at him and goes, "Really?" The Ghost of Christmas Past is like, "Really? It's the 24th. It's Christmas Eve. Your
Yeah.
dad didn't decorate nothing."
No. No. And it must have been, I mean, he must have been, I can't remember in that scene that he didn't have the brother was not in that scene. So I wonder if the brother wasn't born yet, because he was pretty little when the dad came home. And what was the mom? Was she like a drinker? Is that why she didn't like do anything?
Well, the mother was actually pregnant with his brother.
Oh, was she? I don't remember that. And I just saw it the other day. I don't know why. I guess I wasn't paying
You
attention.
can you can actually see her sitting down, and she's pregnant
Oh,
with his
okay.
brother.
Okay. So
Um,
so I was right. She technically he wasn't there, but he was.
right, he was there. He was just inside of her stomach.
Yeah.
Of course, the father's a butcher. He goes, well, Merry Christmas, Frank," and it's veal. He brings
Veal
home veal,
for a child. What a weird thing to bring
and
home.
he goes, "But I didn't want that. I wanted this." And he goes, "Well,
Oh,
get a job."
yeah.
And the mother goes, "Get a job. He's 4 years old. What do you want him to do?" Because there's always some type of
Mm,
excuse with these kids.
yeah.
And
The dad was such a dick.
he was, but no wonder why Frank had mental anguish with his father, with blocking out issues and also dealing with stuff on his own end
Yeah.
as well because of the damage that his father did to him.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a really important scene. Even though it was so sad, I was like, when it came on, I was like, I don't want to watch this again. And I knew we were gonna have to talk about it, so I made myself. But if I would have been home and it would have been on like TV, I would have left the room or I would have fast forwarded it. But I didn't. But I wanted to cry. I was like, no, not the veal scene again. And then
I love Bill.
yeah, I do too. And in my house, my mom did cook veal when we were little, but that's not something like you normally serve to children, I don't think, or maybe not in the United States anyway. That's not super common,
Well,
but I
my
do love veal.
right, my grandmother made veal cutlets and stuff,
Oh, they're
so
so good.
they
I
really
love a good
are.
veal cutlet.
So yeah, I was served a veal before as a kid. So If
Yeah,
you're
my mom.
Italian in Boston, yeah,
Oh yeah, see, there you go. Now my dad was meat and potatoes, so my mom would make a lot of roasts, and she did all the little, like you get the rib roast, and she would put the little. There used to be these little paper things you could put on the crown roast, and it just was so weird that she would do that. I mean, maybe it wasn't weird in this. Maybe in the 70s and 80s that wasn't weird, but that's definitely not how I cook or anybody I know today. And
right.
I don't cook a lot of veal. I should.
I,
Now I'm hungry. Now I'm hungry, John. Let's order
sorry.
pizza.
Okay, sounds good. I'll be over in about 7 to 8 hours. So I hope that you still have some left over. But Brandy asked a question though too. She said, "We're gonna get to this in a few minutes.
Oh,
Though, what do you all think about his nickname, Lumpy?"
yeah. They didn't explain why she calls him Lumpy, right? So it must have just been one of those sort of weird. I think it's weird, but it's also cute the way
I
she
think so
calls
too.
him Lumpy
I think it's just a special nickname that she chose for
for
him
whatever reason. Yeah, for whatever reason. Yeah.
because
I
she
like
does hit him with the door. So I'm wondering if that has anything to do with it.
yeah, maybe. I don't know. I was I think it's cute. I think it's a weird nickname, but I think it's cute. And
I think
and I
so.
think they purposefully did that to show like that he actually has like some sort of really human side. Like because I'm sure at work in present day Scrooged everybody called him asshole behind his back. You know what I mean? And then here's
Right.
this woman who sees something completely different in him.
And
Enough to, like the softer, nicer side of him.
right, she's basically his light into his darkness and
Yes.
everything, and she's trying to get in there, but it's just not working. None in this.
No. And it's sad too because it's like all of a sudden like she shows, she comes and to see him and it's like, we don't know how much time has passed, but it's probably a long enough period and all of a sudden here she still is like making herself available to him because for whatever reason she still had feelings and maybe they, you know, even if they weren't like romantic feelings, she still like shows up and he's just a big old douche about it when, so I don't know.
Right. Then there's also okay, so it goes from his house, and of course, Frank is also telling the Ghost of Christmas Past, "I'm not gonna cry." He goes, "Oh, really? Well, I had somebody else here with me one time, and guess what? Niagara Falls." And then next thing you know, if Frank is starting to cry, he goes, "Niagara Falls." And he goes, "Handkerchief." He slaps the handkerchief away from the Ghost of Christmas Past. Then they get back in the cab, and then they're pulling up to this other set where Frank is starting to be a actor in a
Mhm.
mascot outfit for this little kids TV show.
Yeah, I like that scene. I love that scene as a matter of fact cuz you don't know at first that it's him in the in the costume. Like right
That's
when they
true. You
first
don't.
like when they come in, you don't know that it's because he's sitting in the audience obviously watching the past performance and then they do the whole scene and then you find out that it's actually him in the dog suit, I guess it is.
Right. But before
And
we get over to that,
yeah, yeah.
I skipped maybe about two scenes from that. There's
Okay.
actually another scene where he's working in the office, and remember they're having an office Christmas party. What's
Oh
happening at the
yeah.
Christmas party? People are having sex. People are making copies of their buttocks. And
That was funny.
yeah,
They were like people did that. I mean, people really did that in the 80s because it was a novelty back then. Xerox machines like in that high level capacity that they just kind of had in office buildings was kind of a newer thing. Prior to that, they were usually like especially in an office like that, you would bring the copy you need and somebody would make it cuz machines were not those Xerox machines were not really mass produced back then. So they weren't really just sitting in the middle of offices. So that's what I loved at when they show her like sitting on there.
right. And she's over there taking pictures of her panties and everything. Here you go, and she's signing it like a famous person.
They're excited. Here, take this. I'm not going to regret this tomorrow.
Right? And then here comes Frank working from the mailroom, delivering stuff, and then goes to Christmas Past, looks at Frank, and goes, "Here comes the party pooper."
It's true. He was. He was like working and like didn't care about the party or anything. But I guess he was ambitious. That was what was important to him at that
Right. He was
time.
just trying to work his way up to where he wanted to be at. at
Yeah.
that time, because everybody does that where they think this is going to be the job. This is going to be the job that winds up being what I'm going to be.
Yeah.
And once I get there, I have this achievement of having all the money I want and everything I want. But heavy is the crown. Heavy is the king who wears the crown, though,
Yeah.
because it's not what it's cracked up to be once you get to that level.
Right. But we also see that he literally worked his way up from the mailroom, which is
Right,
like, when they say like you work your way up, that's pretty much literally what he did
right.
to get where he
And
is.
one of the, matter of fact, the girl who's taking her panties and everything and handing it over to Frank, a copy of her panties, goes, "Here you go, Frank. Thank you." And then you see the boss, his boss. "Why don't you take it easy, Frank?" He goes, "No, I'm okay. I'm gonna keep on. I just have a few more things to wrap up." And then someone says, "Why don't you go want to get Chinese?" He goes, "No, that stuff's bad for you." And then after of course, that's the girl who winds up giving him the Xerox of her butt, and then Frank is over there looking at his past self. "Go back over there, you stupid fool!" You and then the Ghost of Christmas Past. "No, not that one, Frank. There's somebody else." So then we get into the scene where he bumps into Claire, and this is where he actually physically bumps into her. What winds up happening is Claire accidentally hits him in the face with the door, causing him to land on the sidewalk. And so that's when she starts calling him Lumpy, just right off the bat. There was like already a nickname for him. And he goes, "Hey, if you want to, I can come back to this. I can walk on the other side of the street if you want, so that way I don't get hit again. If there's
That was
if you
funny.
shop in the same area." Bum, 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 bum. But yeah,
That was funny. That was super cute.
but yeah,
Yeah.
and then of course she's like, "Do you want to go out for Chinese food?" And next thing you know, Chinese food leads to them having a relationship. And then there's that Kama Sutra book and stuff like that they just look at. And of course, he winds up buying her knives.
Yeah. The Ginsu knives. Now, the Ginsu knives were a big deal in the 80s. That was really funny. He's like, I don't think I've ever liked a girl enough to give her 12 sharpened knives before, or six, or whatever it was. It was such funny. It was funny. And she liked him. She's like, I love her, whatever. It was really cute. But then he's like flipping through the Kama Sutra. He's like, "Been done that. Done that."
Uh,
And she's like,
because,
with who?
yep, definitely did this one. Did this one. Did this one over here. Yep, did that.
That was
But yeah,
total Bill Murray moment right
hmm
there when he's going through that and he's saying that. It was classic Bill Murray moment there.
definitely built a classic. It also reminds me of Ghostbusters when, remember whenever they're doing the lie detector test in the basement and he's asking the girl
Mhm.
all these questions and she's
Mhm.
basically not understanding what he's doing, so he doesn't shock her and then he winds up shocking the boyfriend. So it kind of goes back over to the Ghostbusters uh days of him doing that kind of thing with the whole
Yeah,
Kama
well, it
Sutra book.
also reminded me kind of, I mean, even though it wasn't totally similar, but there's a scene
Right.
in Stripes where he and Harold Ramis's character meet the MPs and they go back to one of their apartments or somebody's house and he's like making the pancakes and she's sitting on the stove and he's like trying to flip the pan. I mean, it's just that funny little moment that's just silliness, but and playful, but still, it's just funny. I
It
like that
definitely
about him.
is.
Yeah.
And then it goes into the whole scene with with him being dressed up as a dog.
Mm-hmm.
And I forgot the
Yeah.
name of the dog character that he
Yeah, I was just
plays.
gonna ask you if you could remember that. I don't remember, but they said it. I just don't remember what it was. I'm pretty sure they said it, didn't they? I feel
Yeah,
like
he
they
does.
did, but I don't remember. Yeah, and so
Um,
I was a little surprised. I don't know about you, but when they like the first time I saw that, I was like, "Oh, he's the dog," because you don't know that right away.
right. I think he was actually trying to work his way up to probably that kind of position where he did TV shows, probably.
Yeah, and they probably like maybe even somebody said, "Okay, well, if if you want to get to this position, you have to do it." But he seemed like he didn't hate the job altogether. I don't think. I think he thought it was amusing, at least.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And of course, this is also another thing too with Claire. Claire's like, come on, we're gonna meet my family and everything. We're all gonna be there." And of course, before that happens,
Oh
the
yeah.
big guy comes over, The guy that's
Yep.
in charge of the network wants him and the person he's having an affair with to go out to dinner.
That scene just frustrated me so much because he's like, it's Christmas Eve, right? Wasn't it Christmas Eve in that scene even? I feel like it was, but maybe it wasn't. Because they would have been filming that show on Christmas Eve. But anyway, yeah, and he's like, yeah. And Frank wasn't even like, dude, you're not gonna invite your wife, you're gonna take your like it didn't seem to phase him at all that the boss was gonna take the girlfriend,
Yeah, he was just going to go ahead and take the girlfriend and not the wife because the
not the
wife was out of
wife.
town.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just thought that was what a jerk. What a douche.
Well, we know where Frank got his douchiness from.
Right, he learned it from his boss, right?
Right.
But then Claire obviously didn't like that, and I don't know. That was kind of sad again because he's
Yeah.
kind of a jerk. Because it's like, really, you're gonna. I mean, I guess I understand he wants to be the boss, so he obviously needs to suck up to the boss. So he's kind of in a dilemma, but it's also a freaking holiday, so go with your girlfriend, dude.
Right. And even the Ghost of Christmas Past goes, you mean to tell me you passed up dinner with your girlfriend to be a dog?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I like how the Ghost of Christmas Past is also making fun of him because he's like, okay, kids, what's this? It's a bone. And it reminds me of that old Popeyes. Remember the Popeye TV show that they used to have back in the day?
I remember it, but I didn't watch that very much, I don't think.
Yeah, I think they actually had someone that dressed up like Popeye and everything, and he would
Yeah.
come out on stage, and you had these kids that would be there, and it kind of that show kind of reminded me of that with
Yeah,
the dog.
I think in the probably in the 60s and 70s there was a lot of like live action shows, like kids shows like that where they had kids in the audience. But I think they kind of went away from that in the 80s maybe because you don't remember seeing that so much with the kids shows then at that point. It's probably really hard to film a TV show with a audience full of children.
I can imagine so. I know I couldn't do it, to be honest with you, to be
That's a
filmed
lot of
with a bunch of kids.
kids.
Yeah,
Not that I don't like kids, but that's a lot of kids.
that's definitely
Trying
a
to
lot of
keep,
kids.
yeah. And then if you're like taking time between scenes and stuff, I don't know. It just seems like, I don't know. But so maybe I'm wondering if that's why they kind of went away from it. But I think that was funny and clever too because it was like the late 80s, but I don't really think they did much of that in the 80s. So that might have been a little bit of a throwback kind of. Well, I guess no, it would have been in the 70s when that happened probably, right? Well,
Right.
they don't really say exactly how long he's been the big boss, but it probably was. That probably was in the 70s.
I can imagine. I think that it could be in the 70s. You
Yeah.
know?
I keep trying to remind myself of like timelines here because the 80s was a long time ago.
Right. But there's no consistency with these movies, though, on the timeline or anything like that on how long he's been there.
Yeah,
Like,
they don't say.
like with Ghost of Christmas Past, he kind of time jumps from 1962 to the office party, then over to whenever he had the promotion with the TV show.
Yeah.
So you have a lot
Yeah.
of time jumping.
Yeah, that's why I was trying not to like get too hung up on it because I don't want to like I was didn't want to overthink every single thing because I was trying to enjoy it.
After that winds up happening, we have this other scene that plays out where, he's back inside the studio where they're filming the Christmas scene for, well, not filming, but they're rehearsing the
Yeah.
Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Yeah, I'm back, baby. I'm back." And so then they have like a problem with the hamsters and everything. Why don't you go on ahead and put staple antlers to the mouth? So now we have animal abuse.
I forgot about the hamsters.
Because the antlers
Television for animals.
because remember about $1 billion worth of dog food that they bought because people thought that was a good idea because people were buying um, dog food for their animals, and also two animals were in front of television sets and watching TV, so they figured it'd be a good idea to market animals on this show.
And it's funny because I think they actually have today, like I think there are television shows for like cats and dogs that you can put on for your animals. So it's kind of funny that they did that because you're like, who would watch? Like my dog doesn't watch TV, but I don't know. I just thought that was kind of a funny underlying sort of ongoing theme about that whole live special, the hamsters, and
right?
it was kind of funny.
It was. And then after that, you have, of course, him going over to the homeless shelter. He winds up meeting
Mhm.
up with the homeless because he's talking to himself and stuff like that. He goes into the homeless shelter. This one woman comes in there, goes, "Oh, you poor thing. Here." He wraps him in that towel. Hey, we have another cold one over here. And then you see the homeless people. And then, of course, one of them is from the Goonies. The mother
Yeah.
from the Goonies is in
Yep.
this.
Mhm.
And then you have this other guy who has a one of those pocket watches
Mhm.
and stuff like that, and you wind up seeing him at the very end of what happens to him. But
Yeah, that's
overall, he was very mean to Claire once again.
yep. He was a total jerk. And he deserved to be like have to leave out of there because he was such a jerk to her. And he went there on I mean, he went to see her. Like what a jerk. Yeah.
Yeah, because remember there was a problem with the fuses.
Mhm.
And Betty turns around. She goes, "Claire, there's a problem with the fuses, and there's also a problem with the turkeys." She goes, "Well, Frank, I can't go to get Chinese food with you now, so we're gonna have to postpone this for another day." And he goes, "What do you mean? No, all you have to do is go ahead, go to the hardware store, get the fuses, no big deal. And all
Yeah.
you have to do for the turkeys is just go to the A and P. If you don't
Yep.
know where the A and P is, go to your phone book under A. If it's not under A, look under P for A and P."
Yeah.
Because these girls are big girls, right? And I like how the black girl just bangs her chest, like, "Come at me, bro."
Oh,
Like,
it's just that whole scene is like, oh man, like, and he's such a jerk about it. He's so cavalier, like it's that easy to just fix it. We're just gonna go and leave all these people because he's even though he's crying earlier in a scene, we think he's kind of getting his heart back. We find out he's still just a giant jerk. You know,
exactly.
he was so dismissive. I mean, especially because they thought he was homeless and they were trying to help him. Like somebody brought him a blanket and they're trying to help him and then he's just a jerk and he's like so disrespectful of them and I really didn't like that scene. So I was
I didn't
glad
either.
that it didn't go well for him because he was a jerk. Total
And,
jerk.
and I'm also glad that scene wasn't that long either. It was
No.
like a really quick scene, and then they jumped into the Ghost of Christmas Present and everything
Yeah.
too. But the name of the other homeless guy that I mentioned with the pocket watch, his name is Herman.
Yeah, Herman. I was thinking Hal, but yeah, I knew it was an H. Yeah, I knew it was H.
Yeah,
Yeah, Herman. Because we meet Herman again, kind of.
yeah, I feel bad for Herman in this movie.
Yeah, I think that they might have written that scene to obviously to introduce us to Herman because it seemed like it was an important to to what happens later. So, but I don't want no spoiler. I'll get
Not yet,
there.
anyways.
I'm always
Right.
jumping ahead on you, John. I'm always like, let's talk about
Hey, if you want to talk about it, we'll talk about it. We can go like that if you want. But
this.
then after that winds up happening, as the rehearsal starts, Frank is visited by the ghost of Christmas past, appearing as a okay. So then after that winds up happening, the ghost of Christmas present arrives as a clumsy yet violent violent fairy. She takes him to Grace's apartment, showing his assistant struggles to support her large family, including her youngest son Calvin, who has remained in mute since witnessing his father's death.
Yeah, and that's where he makes that comment about like, "Oh, he died. I thought she just took off of work for something else. I can't remember what it was." So he didn't even know. Like I don't think he knew she even had children or anything. Oh yeah, no, I guess he does because he pulls down the drawing from the son at the
Yeah,
beginning. So he
he
does
does.
know she has at least one kid.
Right, because remember, he says, "How many fingers do we have? 10.
Hmm.
This person has 11." And he goes, "That's it. No more." Throws the drawing out.
Yep. And the grandma in that scene, I loved her. She played the mom in a TV show. I don't know if you ever saw it because it was on the 70s, but there was a show called What's Happening. And it had her son
I know that
Raj and
show.
yeah, Raj and then I forget the daughter's name. He had a sister. So she played the mom for I think just a season or two. She wasn't on the whole time. And there was Rerun was one of the big famous characters that came out of that show. But she played the mom on What's Happening, and I loved that show, and I loved her. So as soon as I saw her, I forgotten she was in it. I was like, "Oh, there she is." So I like that because I liked seeing her again on screen.
You know what? I didn't even realize that was her until you said it. So it's actually pretty cool to actually see her in the '80s being a
Yeah,
grandma. You know?
yeah, yeah. Because she was so this What's Happening would have been on I think mid 70s, mid to late 70s.
Hmm.
And I don't think it was probably only on for 3 or 4 seasons, maybe a little longer, but it was a great show. And it was really entertaining, really interesting, and so it was really fun to see her, and I had completely forgotten that she was on it.
Right.
She obviously
Um,
had a really small role, but it was still good. I was really glad, though, to see her.
I to be honest with you, for her to have such a small role, you can definitely embrace the fact that she was a grandmother and she loved her grandkids.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah,
something
I
that I really
mean,
appreciated.
yeah, she was really, and I think even though she had a really small role, her role was pivotal in this show because she was helping out her daughter raise her children, and we could see in their home they didn't have a lot of money, but they were very happy.
Right.
Obviously, they seem to be very joyful people. So I like that. And I like that that balance with showing this family happy even though they don't have much, and then you have Frank over there watching and still kind of not quite getting it yet. Somebody needs to give him another lump in his head, I guess. Make him
He's
lumpy again.
right. But I like how this fairy is though towards him. She just knocks the shit out of him.
Yeah. She is like not gonna be nice to him. No, no, no. And she's so funny because she's got such a distinctive voice when she talks. That's
Right.
really what makes that character or her characters are the voices she does with them.
Definitely. And then, Frank is over there watching them uh you know blurp on this kid's stomach and doing those sound effects on the
Yeah.
kid's stomach. Next thing you know it
She's
the
like,
next thing going into Frank's over there laughing. And there's that scene. He goes, well, what's going on with her son? He goes, he hasn't talked since his dad died. And he goes, his dad died. What happened? Well, you remember that time when she was wearing all black?
yeah, for
And
like
he
a
goes,
year.
yeah. He goes, yeah. I thought that was just a fashion thing,
What a jerk. He's such
right?
a jerk. Like, oh, she had to miss work for the funeral and you probably didn't even give her the day off, you jerk.
He probably only gave her like only enough time to get the dirt on the coffin, and then she had to go back to work.
Yeah, probably. Probably nobody else would have even filled in for her because he's such a jerk.
Right. So after that winds up happening, she winds up saying only he can break the spell. The kid can break the spell from him talking, being able to talk. So
Mhm.
after that winds up happening, Frank is, he's starting to have a little bit more of a soul.
A
And
little bit.
then, yeah, just a little bit. And then he goes over to his brother's house. And get this,
Oh,
that
yeah.
was actually his real brothers, though. That was actually Bill Murray's real family.
I remember seeing that in the IMDb or when you watch it on Amazon, they have the trivia that comes up while you can watch it. So I think I remember seeing that. And his brother's been in a few other movies with him playing his brother.
Right. And his brothers, they're playing a trivia game. Well, first they're opening up presents, and
Mhm.
there's this gigantic box that that was from Frank, and he's looking at it. He goes, "That's not a towel."
Busted Grace. You didn't send the
And
towel.
it was this nice fancy JVC, top of the line VCR back in those days. And just wow, thanks Frank for the VCR. And
Mhm.
everybody, you know what? I like the brother doesn't stop believing in Frank, that there's something good about Frank. And
Yeah.
all his other family members are like, what do you see in him?
Yeah,
Because
they're
all
all
he's
kinda
doing gonna
like,
do is
"Don't
lick them.
bother." Yeah, don't be in touch with him. Why do you always I think it was that somebody asked, like, "Why do you always invite him over? He never comes. You invite him every year." I think was it the wife that said that? "You invite him
Yeah,
every year for Christmas, and he never comes." And he's just like, "Well, he's still my brother, you know. But
Right.
then I don't know if you recognize the wife, was she very famously in a very short scene played Helen in When Harry Met Sally.
Okay, I didn't realize that. Okay,
And she
I'm at
also
the.
played the she played one of the she was married to Rick Moranis's character in Parenthood.
Okay.
And they're the ones that had the little girl who was like she was maybe, I don't know, 7, maybe somewhere between 5 and 7, and they were like they thought she was super gifted, so they were like teaching her other languages and all this stuff, and they were really uptight while everybody else in the I don't know if you ever saw the movie Parenthood, but everybody else's kids were like, "What?" And she's just like this really well-behaved smart kid, but it's a great movie if you haven't seen it, but yeah, I
I haven't
just
seen that one.
recognized her right. Yeah. Oh, you should. It's so good. It's so, so good. Jason Robards, Steve Martin. It's a great movie. It's a really good movie.
Okay, I'll definitely check that one out.
Yeah.
Um, then after that winds up happening, they're playing this game. They're playing a trivia game, and they couldn't think of the SS Meadow. And then also too with the harpsichord, on the Adams Family, who what kind of instrument does Lurch play on the Adams Family? And then of course they wind up getting the answer wrong. And then of course Bill's over there trying to scream at them about what the right answers are. And then the Ghost of Christmas Present is basically saying, "He can't hear you. He can't, and we gotta go now." "No, we don't. I want to stay here a little longer. I'm having fun." He goes, "No, we gotta go." "No." And so she picks up the toaster and hits him upside the head with the toaster.
And you know what I kept thinking the whole time? I'm like, do people really give each other toasters for Christmas? I don't know
Probably
why
so.
that came into my head.
It was probably a winning gift or something, and they're like, "You know what? I'm just gonna go ahead and get this for a Christmas present."
Right. Regift, regift.
Right.
Yeah, because he obviously she didn't have she should have picked up the VCR and hit him with it. That would have been really funny.
And then after that winds up happening, that's when, of course, once he falls, he falls down into a sewer, and then that's
Hmm.
when we find Herman. He's dead.
Yeah, he's dead. And Frank's upset about it. Like once he realizes that he's actually he's like frozen to death. And
Yeah,
at first you're like not exactly sure. I mean, maybe you're hopeful. Like I was hopeful, like, oh, he can't really be dead. You know, whatever. Even though he's like encased in ice practically. And then he's kind of like, come on, Herman. And then he realizes that Herman is actually not alive. And I think that's when sort of it really starts to sink in that, like, life is fragile, and these people you've been seeing are people that you've had relationships with and loved, and still love you back, but you're just kind of a jerk, and maybe this will be you. Maybe you're going to end up frozen someday and nobody's going to care.
that's true. Because that's also another thing too. Whenever he actually dies, and the Ghost of Christmas Future and everything, whenever everybody's around him and everything, they start burning him as well
Oh
for
yeah,
being
yeah.
cremated.
Yeah.
But it also reminds me of the fact that you may think that you have it all together, and you might think that you'll be able to see these people at any time. So therefore, it's not that
Mhm.
big of a deal, because it's like, okay, these people are always going to be around in my life. Just because you see them for that short time does not mean that they're going to be there all the time.
Mhm.
And I think
Exactly.
that's what it is. I think that's the reality of Frank with this
Yeah.
scene. This is just me thinking of
Yeah.
the fact that he just saw Herman not too long ago.
Mhm.
That could have been his brother down there.
Yeah.
Then he never got a chance to spend time with him. And
Nope.
he thought that maybe his brother would be in his life all the time, always getting invited, and he'll catch up with it whenever he has to catch up with him.
Yeah.
But
Exactly.
and
Taking him
as
for
he's
granted.
right, and I believe that he also took Herman for granted though too, because he
Oh
didn't
yeah.
really help him
No.
or anything.
No.
And seeing him down there with the pocket watch and him being frozen, he's like, "Why didn't you go to Claire? Claire would have helped you. Why you are so selfish?" Da 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 da. And I'm like, dude, you're also just you're selfish
Yeah.
in your
That's
own
you.
way,
You're yelling at yourself kind of.
right? So after that winds up happening, he's back over on the set yet again.
Oh, yes.
then he goes back upstairs, and then that's whenever the Ghost of Christmas Future comes
Comes.
and visits him.
Yes. And then we have him, like, they end up at the funeral, but we don't know whose funeral it is. And we find out though that he doesn't want to die. I mean, he's like kicking and screaming the whole way. So at this point, we've realized that he's made some sort of realization. Everything yet we don't know because we haven't heard the big speech, which we'll get to. But yeah, we're like he's like, who's in there? Who's in there? And then he's in there, and they're pushing him into the fire, and like his feet are on fire, and he's like, I don't want to die, kind of thing. So I I guess the special effects weren't great there either, but they were still better than earlier.
Yeah, like the Ghost of Christmas Future, he basically is like death,
Yeah.
and he's in the elevator. And for the special effects at the time, it could probably have worked,
Yeah. Yeah, they
but
probably were for the time, yeah.
now, no, not so
No.
much. But
No.
Franco goes on ahead, opens up um, Ghost of Future Present's robe. He winds up not present, but Future's robe, and he sees a bunch of souls that's inside the skeleton and stuff like that. And he's like, "Oh, did my team do that? That's actually pretty cool."
Yeah. Yeah, I guess we should probably I guess we forgot to say that, like, he keeps running into the ghost of Christmas Future that's playing the actor from the live version they're doing later in that night. So he kind of like thinks it's him again until he sees the souls and realizes it's not him.
Right, and then especially that one scene in the elevator, because he's thinking he's going to go up to the office and have another scotch drink or whatever.
Yeah,
All of a
yeah,
sudden, the elevator starts going really fast all the way down, and then that's when it opens up into the cemetery.
yeah. And we see them that his funeral, but he doesn't know quite yet it's his funeral, and it's actually like the fire on his feet, which I was like, oh, that's kind of not great. But
No,
I'm not sure that there was a better way to do that for the time, because this must have had a decent budget where if the technology was there, they probably would have spent the money on it, because it would have been a fairly decent budget film if Bill Murray was agreeing to star in it. At that point, he was a huge star.
the budget was 32 million.
Yeah, that's a pretty big budget for a 1980s film that's not like a super action film or something.
Right, back then that was a big budget film, especially with Bill Murray being attached to it. It
Yeah.
also made 100.3 million at the box office at
Yeah, I'm
that
not
time.
surprised. I'm not surprised at all, because I remember, like, everybody wanted to see that movie when it came out. And it got really good reviews that I remember for the most part, and people liked it. It was a good movie. And I think even though when they made this movie, they knew that it was going to be a classic, or they hoped it would. I guess you never really know. But I think they made it knowing that people generations to come, at least I hope they knew people would want to see it, because people do want to see it, and it's Bill Murray, and people love Bill Murray. I mean, all generations seem to really like Bill Murray because he's funny. He's a funny actor.
He is. I love Bill Murray on all the
Me
stuff that he
too.
does.
Me too. There's you and I talked about this. There's one movie I didn't love that everybody else did. So, but I didn't like the repetition of Groundhog Day, and it wasn't because of Andy McDowell or Bill Murray. I just didn't like the film itself. I think that's the only thing that he's done that I've seen that I didn't love.
I can see that. Like I said, I can understand the repetition and why you didn't like it. For me, and this is why I like it and everything, though, is yeah, there's a lot of repetition, but there's also a lot of character building along that, though. Because Bill is
Yeah,
learning from being a snob,
yeah,
and there's the transformation of his character. He's learning each day
yeah.
of how to become a better human being,
I am
in a sense.
the only person I know that doesn't like that movie. So I'm
It
in the
took me a
minority
while.
on that one.
To be
I
honest with
don't
you,
know.
it took me a while to warm up to it, but once I understood it and what it was going for, I wound up liking it later on. Because at first I'm like, what is this? Why is he repeating everything all over again?
Yeah.
So I did get confused as a kid watching it, but as an adult, as someone who was in his teens, I wound up liking it. for what it is.
Well, I saw it in the movie theater, and that's the only time I've ever seen it. So maybe I'll give it another go because I do love Bill Murray.
Okay. Um, there's also another thing too that I forgot to mention. When it comes down to Ghost of Christmas Future, is where Calvin becomes catatonic and he is institutionalized.
When is that? When do they talk about that? And they talk about that with the Christmas future?
Yeah, that's
Oh yeah,
actually
yeah, yeah, yeah. You're right. You're right. You're right.
yeah.
I'm sorry because they show. Okay, so you're right. So they show the mom. He is in the like the padded room,
Hmm.
or I don't like calling it that, but he's institutionalized, and the mom is in there visiting him. But there's like no furniture or anything in this room he's in. So we obviously are seeing that he's actually doing worse than he was. So obviously other things are happening to him that he has to be institutionalized, and then the mom goes to visit him for Christmas or whatever it is, and then she leaves. And it's really sad because, like, it's just like the stark, horrible, awful scene where you're just seeing him as I think he was probably a teenager at this point. I would think, right? Wouldn't you guess he was a teenager?
Yeah, I would say that he was a teenager,
Yeah.
to be
Huh.
honest.
Yeah. I didn't. It was so sad because you're just like, oh no, if he doesn't intervene, then this is the path he's going to go down. And I think that scene actually Frank was really upset and realized that if somebody doesn't intervene, it won't things won't change, and he might have to be the person because maybe if she has money to send him to therapy or whatever it is he needs, and if she doesn't have the money, then he should pay her more so that she does have the money or pay for it. And I think he realizes at that point that he could maybe do better or do something to help somebody else.
I think so. I also think it's like if I don't straighten my ways and everything, this could wind up hurting my secretary because whatever we do in life has a reflection on somebody else and
Yeah,
everything
that's a
too.
really good point. I hadn't thought about it that way, but you're right.
So I'm thinking that's the repercussions if he doesn't straighten out. And not only that, but if he didn't straighten out during this time, he would have nobody would have cared about him. He would have actually been cremated and be like another day at the office, basically. No one would
Yep.
really miss him except for his brother. Claire would
Nope.
move on with the person that she married. Then of course he would still be a mute. He would be in the middle, be institutionalized,
Yeah.
and because he changed at the very end, that's why we get that great scene of him saying "God bless us, everyone," and it was like one of the first words that he spoke. Frank
Yeah,
is
I
actually the
love
one
that.
that helped him break that spell.
Yeah. Oh, and then he picks him up. I mean, I guess we haven't quite gotten that far yet, but and then
It's
when he
okay.
picks them up, I just love that. It's so sweet, and it actually is so true to like the play or the story. But I guess in the play, we see that like Ebenezer Scrooge picks up Tiny Tim and kind of, it's always different in every play, but he usually picks him up in the same way that Frank did. So it's kind of really mirroring. I mean, the whole story obviously does, but I think that moment especially because that's kind of an important scene in the play anyway. Maybe not as
Agreed.
much in the reading. I don't remember. I haven't read a Christmas Carol, the story itself in many, many, many years.
Mm.
But I do like the play. I think it's a good play, obviously. But yeah, so that moment where he sort of picks him up after he talked, because they're kind of like, "What did he just talk?" And then you see the look on the mom's face where she just like feels tremendous relief and joy at that moment. Like, oh,
Right,
good, we're going in the right direction. Like he's going to talk now. Things are hopeful at least.
right. And then also do another thing that makes me laugh is remember whenever his feet's burning, and then all of a sudden he's in the elevator still. He goes, "I'm alive, I'm alive," and then all of a sudden he's face to face with Elliot with a shotgun.
I forgot. I didn't forget, but I forgot. We forgot Elliot. Poor Elliot. Poor
Yeah,
stupid
Elliot
Elliot.
got his booze taken away from him from Ghost from
He's so drunk at
Chris.
this point.
Every single time he wants to get drunk, he really can't because the ghost of Christmas past winds up taking his booze away from him. Then he
Yeah.
has this other thing that happens. He accidentally drops the booze. Then, like everything, and then also too, Ghost of Christmas Past also winds up splashing water on him by driving really fast.
Yes.
in the taxi cab. So you have a lot of things that are happening with Elliot. Then finally, Elliot winds up taking the shotgun, shooting him in Frank's office, shooting shotguns, the shotgun at Frank. Frank is dodging everything. Then after that, Frank goes, "Hey, Elliot," and he starts hugging him. He goes, "Would you like your job back?" He goes, "I thought I was right." "No, you can have mine." So he goes, "What about my bonus?" "You can have all the bonuses you want. I don't care." So and Elliot's like, "What the hell is going on? I wanted to kill him."
He's like,
So
"Yeah, I came here to kill him, and I got my job back."
right, and then he takes Elliot with him to the operating, not, to the camera room and all that stuff. Puts him up in that little area, and holds everybody hostage while he's making a speech. He goes, "Elliot, I don't hear anyone having fun." All of a sudden, Elliot shoots the shotgun. He goes, "Everybody having fun?" And you see this one girl kind of dancing. Then you see the Cummings guy afraid and everything too,
Yep.
and he goes, "What kind?" And then of course the big person over at the company is pissed off because Frank is over there ruining the show on Christmas Eve, and he goes, "What
The
kind of?"
guy that was making the hamsters, right? That was the guy, right? And his wife, or
Well,
who were watching it at home.
yeah, the wife was watching it at home. The person who's in charge of the production and also the studio was like, calls up the main office. He goes, "What idiot puts this guy on?" And he goes, "Oh, that would be Mr. Cummings." And because I need to talk to him. I need to talk to that moron. Well, he's a little tied up right now, and he's because Elliot put a Christmas wreath around him, tied him up, and then of course Bill Murray makes that awesome speech, and
And
yeah,
then during the speech, or at some point, the brother, they cut back to the brother who's like, "Oh, we should have taped this."
and it's funny because he actually has the TV with the VHS tape box, standing the TV up, holding the TV up with the VHS tape box
It was so funny. "Oh, we should have taped this."
because we never know when we're gonna have this again.
I think that might
But
have been one of my favorite lines in that whole movie.
that was a great line, to be
Yeah,
honest with you.
yeah.
And he goes, "By the way, I just want to let you know, it wasn't me that bought the VHS. It was Claire that
Great,
bought the no
Grace.
Grace that bought the VHS. You were gonna get a towel." And you
And
can
that,
definitely tell it stung a little bit.
yeah, but you know what? The thing about that last scene is just such classic Bill Murray, and you totally know that he's just winging it. Whatever
Yep,
lines they wrote, he didn't say any of them, but it was so funny. He just really was funny. That was good. But we did also forget to mention that earlier when he was back in his office, that he opened the present from his brother, and it was a picture frame that he made, and it was a picture of him and his brother, and he wrote like, "To the best big brother ever," or
mhm.
something like that. And it was a beautiful little frame, and he was kind of like, "Oh, he made me this frame." And it was like, oh, I think he was touched by that. I think that
Yeah,
helped sort of soften his heart, realizing that his brother went through that trouble to make the frame and then put the picture in there of the two of them.
I can see that. I could definitely see his heart not being as hardened as it was because it
Kind of
shows
the
that somebody
Grinch
cares
heart,
about him.
right? The
Right,
Grinch heart gets bigger.
exactly. But overall, this movie is fun. It's
Yeah.
entertaining. I watch this even whenever it's not Christmas time sometimes, just to have a good laugh from time to time. But then also too, we also see Ghost of Christmas Present, Ghost of Christmas
Mhm.
Past, Future, and also we see what was the guy's name? Herman. That's next. Then we see Herman over there, and also to his other mentor that he had in the office whenever he passed away. We see all them together watching this go down as well. Whenever he's also embracing Claire,
Yeah.
they wind up kissing underneath the mistletoe. Then Mr. Cummings also gets a kiss from the woman who's been getting hurt on the set all this time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great little ending. It's a good ending, and I love that they ended it with that speech because it was so classic Bill Murray, and it was so funny, and you can see that Frank changed, and now he's like gonna try and be a better person. And then we talked about this off camera, but then he makes that he says, "Feed me, Seymour," which I thought was so weird, but it immediately got the reference because I loved A Little Shop of Horrors.
Me
But
too.
yeah, we talked about that he had done a cameo in that one.
Yep. I remember him making the cameo appearance in that movie and everything. Little Shop of Horrors is one of my favorite movies that Rick
We
Moranis
have
has ever done.
we need to talk about that one then because I love Little Shop of Horrors.
I do too. We need to actually do a review on that.
I would
I
love
think it
to
would be
because
fun.
I loved that movie, and my mom loves musicals and hated it.
My
She
mom
couldn't.
hates that movie.
My mom does too, and I couldn't figure it out because I thought it was so good. It's such a good movie. I don't know why my mom didn't like it, but she's just wrong.
She is. My mom's wrong too. So what's up? But anyways, where can everybody follow you at if they want to follow you and all that other good stuff?
I am one half of the Made for TV Movie Club podcast. My other half, Case. Hi, Case. She's probably watching. I hope she's watching. You can find us on Twitter at TV Movie Club Pod One. We're on Facebook at the Made for TV Movie Club podcast. We are on Instagram at made_for_TV_movie_club. Or you can, let's see if I get this right. Google the hashtag MFTVMC podcast and you'll find us.
Okay. And tomorrow night, 8 o'clock Central Time, 9 o'clock Eastern Time, we are doing our Dexter after show review. This is for Dexter New Blood. Go ahead if you're a huge fan of Dexter. We're going to be doing that on our Facebook page at Movie Lovers TV Lovers Unite. Over there, that's where we're doing our Dexter after shows until we can get this other mess straightened out with the channel. So we're still battling that. Then of course tomorrow, Wednesday night, I'll have Hawkeye Wednesday because we didn't have our Hawkeye after show for Friday night because everybody was out of town. So we're actually going to be doing the season finale and also the episode that aired last week. So we're combining the two of them, reviewing that. Then Thursday night, 8 o'clock Central Time, 9 o'clock Eastern Time, I'm going to actually be doing a review with Christopher Minori for a Christmas movie as well, another Christmas film. And this is actually that. This is actually the Mel Gibson movie called Old Man, I think.
Hmm. I've never seen that one.
Basically, it's about this guy who winds up. It's okay. It's actually called Fat Man,
Mm,
and basically, this kid winds up putting a hit on Santa.
that's
And
cool.
he's this rich kid who winds up putting a hit on Santa. Santa's drunk. He's old. He doesn't. He's like Danny Glover, who's just getting too old for this crap. So I'm excited to talk about that one because that was my first time viewing it. So tune in 8 o'clock Central Time, 9 o'clock Eastern Time for that. Tuesday night, I'm not sure what we're doing yet, but stay tuned for more listings. So, of course, follow me on Facebook at Movie Lovers TV Lovers Unite. I'm the same brand name on Pinterest and on Instagram as well. You guys want to go ahead and donate to the page. How do you guys do that? Just go over to GoFundMe.com/Movie Lovers Podcast. Donate $5 to $10 over there. But I understand it's the holiday season. You guys don't have to do that. Do us this one big favor though. Smash that subscribe button. Smash that bottom hand right hand corner with this little bell in the bottom hand right hand corner to allow you guys to know when we have some new stuff coming out. Also, too, give us a like. Don't forget to comment below. That also helps out in a big way over here at Movie Lovers Unite. Also, too, if you want to rate us on Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, and all that stuff, go on ahead, rate us over there. And also, too, Good Pods now has a way for me to interact with you guys. All you guys have to do is comment, and I'll reply back to you guys. And also, too, you can rate us over there. It's also another Good Pods is a great place, is like social media for people that love listening to a podcast, or if you're a podcaster yourself, it's a great way to interact with your fan base, and also too for people to be able to find you on other sites. Also, too, Spotify now has it to where you can actually rate us over there too. So now people can rate us on Spotify. And then another thing too is, guys, go ahead and follow me on Movie Lovers Unit 0 on TikTok, and of course Movie Lovers Unit on Twitter as well. Then, of course, if you were a sponsor or would like to be on the show, just go on ahead, reach out to me at movieloversunite@gmail.com. And always, until next time, guys, thank you, Beth, for joining me. I do appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. And always, until next time, guys, it's been real. It's been fun. I can't wait to do this again. And have a good night. Bye bye.
Bye.